My name is Julie Pearson, Little Thunder. Today is November 23rd, 2015, and I'm interviewing Wendy Ponca for the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program at Oklahoma State University. Wendy, you're Osage. You are a fabric and fashion designer taught at the Institute of American Indian Art for many years. You're perhaps best known for your traditional Osage clothing, but you're also one of the early contemporary Native fashion designers who made the field what it is today. So thank you for taking the time to talk with me.
Thank you.
Where were you born and where did you grow up?
Well, I was born in Odessa, Texas, but I grew up a lot here in Oklahoma and there back and forth. And then when I was a junior in high school, I went to school at the Institute of American Indian Arts when they had a high school program there. So that's in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Right.
But my grade school and years, junior high and stuff like that, my parents and I, we moved to a little town in Fort Davis, Texas, and we lived at the McDonald Observatory.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that was a really good experience. There was, astronomers from all over the world come there and observe and use the telescopes. I think there's 7 domes there with telescopes in them. And
so what did your dad do for a living?
my parents are both artists, but when we lived at the observatory, they ran the Longhouse, which is a facility where the astronomers stayed. It's just like a big apartment or dormitories where the astronomers would stay, because they would usually stay for 2 weeks at a time observing, the stars or whatever they were observing.
Brothers or sisters?
I have one sister. Her name is Felicia Ponca, and she lives in Santa Fe, and she's a wedding planner.
Older or younger?
Younger. She's 16 years younger than me.
How about your relationship with your grandparents on either side of the family?
My mother's side of the family is Anglo, and they've passed away, and they were really sweet people. Their names were Curly and Ernie Furr, and they were here in Fairfax. My parents met here in Fairfax, and my father's family were Indian and from here, and they were Carl and May Ponca, Carl Sr., and because my dad is Carl Jr., and my grandfather was Osage, and my grandmother was Cherokee, but at the time they didn't get on the rolls or anything, because at that time it was like, it wasn't cool to be Indian at that time, so.
Right. Did you grow up around the language or the dances? Traditional Osage?
Started dancing when I was 2, and there was always people speaking Osage around me, all my life, and so I know a lot of Osage, but it's just like I said, I probably know as much Spanish as I do Osage,
How about artistic influences? I know your father was an artist.
And my mother. And so I grew up around art all of my life. I love it. I used to, when I was a little kid, make ceramic little houses and animals, out of clay. And I think the first time I started doing art like what I do now, we lived in Sausalito, California, and we went to a free concert for Country Joe and the Fish, and there was girls there making love beads. And I remember just standing, I was just like, even with the table, and I was watching them, I told Mom, I said, I want to do that, I want to make that. So my mom went and bought me some beads, and I used to string beads up. I think I was about 6 years old, to make love beads. And, it just went from there, just doing all kinds of stuff. I remember I used to make Christmas presents for people, and I'd make, get a piece of material and then put beads and stuff and make like a little scene and give them away to my relatives, for Christmas, so.
So you always were drawn to three-dimensional media?
Yeah. Especially beads and pretty shiny things.
Did you have any other extended family who were artists?
Oh yeah, I had an aunt on my dad's side. Her name was Blanche Bear, and she was just the quintessential folk artist. She made all kinds of art and everything like that, and she was really inspirational to me. I used to stay with her a lot in the summers, and she she taught me how to crochet and knit and do stuff like that. But then she would send me to this lady here in town, Davy Watson, and I learned how to finger weave and stuff like that. And so I learned a lot of things that we do here, being around her.
Right. What is your first memory of seeing Native art?
Probably the dances, going out to Grayhorse and dancing. You know, so much fun. Everything's so beautiful and bright and pretty, you know.
Right. How about your first memory of making art, your very first memory?
I think my first memory of making art is playing with watercolors. I really like that. You know, for my parents to actually let me mess around with paints, you know what I mean, was a big deal because it's so messy, but I really like that.
So you kind of explained that some of your early schooling was in Texas. Do you remember any like elementary school experiences with art that kind of stand out?
Yes, you know what I remember. I think we probably all did this in elementary school. Do you remember this time of year we would make turkeys out of beans and corn and stuff, glue it on the paper? Do you remember that? I love that. I love gluing things on there to make it make it a picture. Is that crazy or what?
How about secondary school or high school? Any outstanding teachers or?
Well, I took classical piano for 10 years, so I was really I think that really helps. Music helps a lot with everything in life, you know. But I was a cheerleader, so we were always making signs and things, painting big signs and doing big signs for people to run through, and I usually did that, you know, so that was fun. Just with tempera paint, you know, and butcher paper.
You mentioned that music was helpful. In what way is it helpful with art?
Well, first of all, you become very disciplined because you have to discipline your time to practice, you know. And also rhythms, you know, rhythms on everything I do is so repetitive, so there's a lot of rhythm. So I have a natural rhythm with my placing of designs and stuff like that, and that's, of course, from music, you know. And also just, you know, being in the right side of your brain, you know. It's, I guess that was really developed well through music, you know. It's just fun. I just love music. It's fun, you know.
So you went to the Institute during high school? Boarding sort of?
Yeah, it was a boarding school there on Cerise Road in Santa Fe, Institute of Marketing Arts, and at the time it was junior, senior of high school, and then junior college. And so I went there and graduated from high school there, but I didn't do college. I went away to Kansas City Art Institute after I graduated from high school there.
At the Institute, what did you focus on?
In high school?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was really cool because we got to do all art forms. So I did ceramics, jewelry making, painting, spent a lot of time doing this fiber arts, but there they called it traditional techniques. So my teacher, her name was Sandy Wilson. She's a Creek Indian. She's a really great artist. Her and her sisters do Seminole patchwork. You know, they're really famous for that. But anyway, she taught me how to weave on a loom and do Seminole patchwork, and then, you know, taught me a lot about traditional pattern making, you know, for clothing, Indian clothing and stuff like that. And so, and I just worked in there all the time, and she would let me use the key and work there at night. So I was just working in that studio all the time, you know, and making shawls and ribbon shirts and cool things like that, you know, what you do in high school, you know.
So you right away sort of ended up gravitating towards the fabric.
I think it was easier for me. Well, I love jewelry making and everything like that, but it was like I didn't have it was harder for me to get access to the facilities and stuff, whereas that studio I could get in and just work all the time, you know, because I just wanted to work all the time.
Who were some of your classmates whose names we might recognize?
Well, Darren Vigel graduated with me. He's a famous painter. And I'm trying to think right now. I know a lot of people that I graduated from high school with, but some of them have passed away, and or some of them are continuing on with their art. I went to school with, they were in the college program. Like Gina wasn't going to school there at the college program, and Raleigh Grandboys and Presley LaFontaine and Laverne Goldtooth. She graduated with me. She's a real famous jeweler, and there was I'm trying to think now. There was a real famous writer, and his name was Hansley Hadley, and then a guy named Manuel Dupu. He's a Hopi Kachina maker, and other people. Just so many.
That's a good, yeah, a good roster there. So you explained that you sort of got your background in, a little bit of background in finger weaving before you arrived there, and then you get this background in Seminole patchwork and some more work with fabric, and then you go to the Institute of, the Kansas City Art Institute. Was there a period in between, or did you go straight from IAIA to the Art Institute?
Straight there.
And what were you wanting to achieve there?
Well, basically just use the facilities, get my degree, learn what I could from there. I mean, they have a really strong foundations program, which is your freshman year, so that was really grueling, but it was good. It was really good. I learned a lot about photography and just basic drawing, and working in the wood shop was scary. I had to do that, but I'm glad I did that, the sculpture department. I really enjoyed working in the fiber arts. That's where my major was, and that's where I learned to do silkscreen printing on fabrics, which I just absolutely love. And I got to weave on a loom there too as well, and silkscreen print the warp before you weave it, which I've done a lot of, and I really enjoy that, manipulating the warp before you weave the fabric. I really like that, and so and then just being around other artists, it's such a good atmosphere, because you learn more from the students as well. You learn from your instructors, but I think you learn more from your peers as well, being around different artists,
And did they have you make a portfolio?
Back then, it wasn't, they really didn't. That didn't start, I don't think, until later years. See, I graduated from there in '82, so that wasn't really pushed at the time, which I'm glad they do that now for students, because it is so important. I mean, they encourage us to take photos of everything, and slides back then was the medium that we used to show our work. But so I did that. I took a lot of slides in my work and stuff like that, and had a little bit of a resume, but they really didn't encourage that as much as they do now,
What happened after you graduated from the Kansas City Art Institute?
I got a job immediately at the Santa Fe Opera in the costume department. So I went out there and worked there, and I learned a lot from them too. It was literally like a sweatshop, but I really enjoyed working there, because you get to hear while you're sewing, you get to hear the orchestra practice, so that was wonderful.
Were you doing any designing or mostly construction? Or?
Slave labor sewing. Cutting and draping and sewing, it was totally a sweatshop, but I loved it. I learned a lot, but I realized see, I originally wanted to go into making costumes for movies and stuff, but after that experience, I realized, I am not working my way up the ladder, because I was on salary, and after I had put in, 14-hour days for all those months, I was making like 90 cents an hour, so I was like, well, I think I will just go on to do my own art. Live and learn, but it was a good experience.
Yeah, and like you said, then for your fashion design later, you have all this construction experience.
Exactly. Yeah, and so I kind of was on the job training,
So you were already in Santa Fe. Then what did you do when you left the Santa Fe Opera?
Well, there was Sandy and her husband Al Wilson had moved back to Oklahoma, and so there was an opening in her class to teach traditional techniques. So I just applied for it, and I started teaching beadwork at IAIA. And at that time, they had moved the campus over to the renting space at the College of Santa Fe campus. So I taught there, and then just started building up the department to where we had just from beadwork to then sewing, and then I got looms. We started weaving, and then I started teaching silkscreen printing on fabric. I just developed the whole department to where everybody could do it whatever they wanted to if they were producing clothing and/or fiber arts. We also did felting and stuff like that, and I ran that department for 17 years, and then I was elected alumni president. So then I worked with the Alumni Association and wrote grants and developed program there, IAIA. It was an art therapy department, for class where the students, we taught art therapy to the students, and then we ran programs like summer school programs with the youth of Santa Fe, Indian youth with Santa Fe, Denver, and Albuquerque with their Indian centers, and we would do art therapy with the Native kids that would come in there. So that was good. I wrote a grant, and we got a Kellogg grant for that because I got my master's. Meanwhile, in art therapy from the Southwestern College while I was still working at IAIA and teaching, I got a full ride from American Indian College Fund to get my master's degree in art therapy. So I said, I can't pass this up. So I did it.
Now, Southwestern College where?
In Santa Fe.
In Santa Fe, okay. Gotcha.
So I got my master's degree in art therapy, and that was great. I love it. But I didn't go on to be a therapist or anything like that. I worked with children and stuff like that, but I didn't want to. I think Native Americans react to art therapy much better than talk therapy. They're less open with speech, but of course in people's art you can't hide your psyche. So it was easier and better to work with, and I like to work with kids doing art, and helping them that way.
And there must have been some challenges when you're adding classes. Basically, you're trying to create this program that's more expansive in areas of fashion and fiber. What were some of the challenges?
Well, of course, funding is always a challenge, but not so much because I started doing fashion shows, and we started getting a lot of really good press. My students and I did fashion shows around town and in Denver and Albuquerque, and we took some field trips out to California and did some fashion shows out there, and I took them to Paramount and Warner Brothers Picture Studios and the Disney departments, where they worked on their costumes and stuff, and so we were getting a lot of good feedback and press, and my students were really excelling, so it wasn't hard to persuade them to we need more of these classes, and the students would sign up for them. So if you have X amount of students signing up for classes, well then they have to give those classes for the students, so it just kind of evolved itself.
What was one of the maybe highlight early shows, because you hadn't done fashion shows before, I take it?
Well, just all over town, like at different venues in town, and we would have them at museums, like Museum of Indian Arts and Cultures and the IAIA Museum, and at the La Fonda or wherever, we would all over, and then we did some up in Denver for the Denver Art Museum there, and we went to Omaha, Nebraska. Actually, the Indians up there hauled us up there, paid for us to go up there, and we did one for them out in LA, and we it just kind of went on. It was its own thing. It kind of grew on its own. Well, Lloyd Keevan New really supported it because he was a designer as well, and he was the president of the school at the time, or the founder of the school, and he and I talked a lot about art and philosophy, and he said, and I totally agree with him, he felt that decorating the body might have been the first form of art as far as primitive man is concerned. It's like painting your body, or decorating your hair, putting shells or whatever, could have been the very first form of art. And I agree with him, whereas some people may say cave painting or whatever, but I'm in the camp with Lloyd that that's the very first form of art. And and it's so natural and easy for Native Americans to produce art that you wear. It's a real strong part of our culture, and it's part of our just in all tribes. We all are painting our bodies or taking things from nature and decorating ourselves most elaborately. And so I think it just comes hand in hand with growing up Native American. Even if you grow up in the city, I see a lot of students there, or people that I've been around, that weren't in touch with their tribes at all, but they still had a strong sense of identity and sense of symbolism and design that they would utilize on their bodies and or what they carry around, and just on their person. So it might be a genetic memory, because if they're not, people believe in that. I believe in that, because if they're not raised on the reservation or whatever, but then all of a sudden they pick up a needle and some beads, and automatically they're just doing some fabulous beadwork, and you're like, hey, where did that come from, you know, or you know, whatever they do, you know, whether it's tattoo designs or whatever, they seem to excel in it, you know.
Well, that was one of the early elements I think you introduced with your fashion, was you were painting tattoos on your models. Could you talk about that a little? And it sounds like maybe...
Well, it was just body painting, you know. I really had gone so far with just making the construction of clothing that I was like, well, what, you know, what's the other step? Well, no materials, or just paint. You know, how can you paint the body where it's copacetic to where you could actually go outside and walk around, you know, and since then, you know, it's a lot of artists have done that, you know, body painting, it's not, and it's not a new form of art, but it was like something that I used just for my own self to express a different mode of showing the human body in a beautiful way. You know, I really like to, I personally don't do shock art or just, sometimes I do art that's whimsical and crazy, like I did. One time my students and I had a black plastic trash bag fashion show where we made all these clothes out of black plastic trash bags. It was great. They loved it. They loved it. They made all these traditional clothes out of black plastic trash bags, and beaded them and stuff. Well, they painted them, and we had it downtown on the plaza, actually, in Santa Fe. And
oh, how fun.
Yeah, so I'm just, you know, we just try to experiment with different materials and see, you know, just like all Native people, you know, you utilize what you have, whether it's bark or it's stones or it's, you know, leather or whatever, you know, whatever's around you, you take and you utilize it and then put it on your body, you know, or use it utilitarian, in a utilitarian way, you know. So we experimented a lot with that, you know, experimenting with trying different things, and see if it could be functional and, you know, wearable.
And I know one of your, we didn't get a chance to talk about your, I don't know if it was like a capstone project at IAIA, but you were working with Osage friendship blankets, and I wondered, that was part of it, and I wondered if you could talk first of all, because blankets.
Are you talking about the Pendleton blanket design, the one for American Indian College Fund?
No, I thought earlier at IAIA.
Yeah, well,
I thought I read that you produced a show and you.
Oh, well, they bought like a couple of blankets off of me for the museum that had hands on them, you know, and a shawl that had hands on them, and then one that had beaded horses on them. They're just traditional Osage wearing blankets, you know, with ribbon work and then those symbols on them, you know. Right. And
can you talk a little bit about the importance, because all the tribes sort of value blankets, but the connection between the Osage and blankets too?
Well, one of the things that I think our tribe is really famous for is our wearing blankets, and we only wear these special blankets that we make. We decorate them with ribbons and beads and stuff on trade cloth, you know, that was traded from, I think, about, I don't know, I've heard 1600s, 1700s, but I don't know if it was that early, you know, but from traders, that blue cloth with the bands on it, you know, woven bands, and it's 100% wool. And anyway, we use that cloth and to make these beautiful wearing blankets that we only wear on Sunday of our dances. Our dances go on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And Sunday is giveaway day, and we only play individual people's songs, and then when you dance to those person's songs, you honor them by giving away, and that's the only time we wear those blankets. So that is the difference between us and a lot of other tribes, where you know, everybody wears shawls and stuff to dance in, but we only wear these blankets on this special day, and so we decorate them very elaborately. Really time-consuming work. It's very hard ribbon work and bead work. And like one blanket I made for my daughter, it took me 3 years to bead it for her. You know, and so you know, I have it in that trunk over there. I'll show it to you. But anyway, so I think that, you know, we're, as a tribe, we're famous for those, and so museums have always asked me to make those, and so I have them in different museums around the country and stuff, and collectors. So, I mean, at the time, 20 years back, there weren't too many people doing those, but now a lot of Osages have started doing it, which is good. Getting back into ribbon work and beadwork and things like that, and finger weaving. But at the time, there weren't many of us doing it, so that's the reason why I got a lot of jobs doing it, because I was one of the few people that was doing it. And well, I'm by far not the best. Trust me, there's a lot of other people who do a lot better job at it than I do, but I just happen to be available. You know, it's like, okay, yeah, I'll make you a blanket, you know, so.
Why did you leave IAIA?
To come home, come back home. You know, my kids were growing up, and I was just tired of paying the rent so high out there, you know, and then my grandmother was ill, and my dad was here, you know, taking care of her, and so I decided I'd come home and help them out, and it was a good thing because they both needed help. They were old and feeble, and, you know, I just wanted to come home and take care of them because I was my dad's only child. Well, before my sister came, you know, we had the same mom and dad, but we're the only two, and my sister was out in Santa Fe working, and she had a really good job out there. I told her, you don't need to come home. I'll do it. I'll come home and take care of him. So I did, and I'm glad I did, you know, because, you know, I like living here. We have a lot of land. We have an old farmhouse, a nice house. It was my grandfather's original latte house, and so my children and I live in there, and my husband and I, and we have land all over Osage County, and it's just, I personally like living in the country. I prefer it to the city, you know.
You were ready to come home. You did work briefly for the American Indian Theater Company, I guess, in Mimi. Do you want to talk a little bit about, was that after you moved back?
Yeah.
Immediately? Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't really going to work, and then my dad said, you should probably take this job. Monetta Tripp, she called me up and asked me if I wanted to write grants for her, and I was like, okay. So for 4 years I drove back and forth to Tulsa, which is kind of a long commute, you know, it's 160 miles a day, and to write grants for them to help them build that Indian Cultural Center, but they still haven't gotten it off the ground. But we did a lot of work. We got the architectural designs. We got a space over there by the river and everything like that, but I only worked for 4 years, and then my dad got really sick, and so then I had to come back and then take care of him here. But they still put on Tulsa Art Festival, Indian Art Festival, and they do a lot of programs for kids and stuff, and that's mainly what I was doing, writing grants for after school programs and to help the art festival, and then help raise money for the cultural center, you know, because that took a lot of money. We got a $500,000 EDA grant for the, you know, architectural plans and stuff like that, but altogether the whole time I was working there, I only raised like $1.2 million in 4 years, so I wasn't that good of a fundraiser. You know, they needed like $18 million, so, you know, for their project to get off the ground. So, and I wish that somebody would help them out and do it, because they have a beautiful space right there on the river, right there by on 71st Street, and on the river, and it's on the east side, and they have, I think it's 5 acres or 15 acres that was given to them by the city, and it'd be a beautiful spot for an Indian Cultural Center, but I don't know if it'll go or not. I wish it would, though, because all the Indians that are here in Oklahoma, you would think that they would have an Indian Cultural Center, a place where they could have their own museum, and then tourists, you know, it could be a big tourist draw, just like New Mexico, Santa Fe, New Mexico. You know, they make like, I remember I saw some statistics in the 90s that Indian market alone brings to the state of New Mexico over $250 million each year, you know, from just the tourist trade. And I try to explain that to the people in Tulsa, like, you guys can make a lot of money off of Indian tourism. All you need is a space. But I think the one in Oklahoma City got off the ground, and they built one there, but the one in Tulsa still hasn't come to fruition. So.
Now, when you were taking care of your dad and your grandmother, were you doing some of your silkscreen printing, or did you have time to do your art part-time after you?
I mainly just did things that I could do at home, like beadwork, beading on blankets, and you know, making a lot of things that I could just hold in my lap and take with me to the hospital, and you know, handwork, because I was mainly just, you know, 24-hour nurse, you know, so I did get to do a lot of traditional clothing for my family, for them to dance in, you know, and that's what I did. I didn't do any really commercial things at all. I did, well, my dad, the last year he was still alive, I was asked to do the costumes for the Osage Ballet, which I did do those with my partner Terry Wan, and we did those costumes for the Osage Ballet, and they turned out really great. That ballet is fabulous. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but why don't you tell us a bit about how you ended up contacting you, how that project came about?
No, they just Randy Smith, the lady who was the producer of it,
And
she
it's
just
pronounced
she's from
Wahzhazhe?
Osage. Yeah, she's
Right.
she's from Ponca, and she just called me up and said she wanted to know if I would make these costumes for this, and told me about the ballet, and I was like blown away. I was like, this is beautiful, and played the music for me that she had this other man had already done the score for, and who's also Osage, and I was like, yes, I would be honored to be in on this. I think this is beautiful, and let's do it. So we got it together. I mean, it was a lot of work. It was like working for the opera, but tenfold, because it was just Terry and I, and we had to make like 150 costumes, because there was like 8 acts, I think, and a cast of like 40 to 50 people all together. So we had our work cut out for us. We did it here in this studio.
Oh, wow.
Believe it or not, you know, we got it done.
And is it still touring? Or?
Yes, in fact, they
That's what I
just
thought.
a couple of months back, they were up in Philadelphia, and they performed for the Pope, and the Pope was visiting America. So, and they're still going on. I mean, they've been to Washington D.C., you know, National Museum of America, and I think they've been asked to go to France next, you know, because we have this Osage have this kinship with the French, you know. We have a sister city over there at Montalban, and they still do it, you know, in Tulsa, and every year it's like a yearly thing in Bartlesville and Tulsa, and I know it'll be continually going on from now on forever, just like the Nutcracker Suite is done every year. It's going to be, it is that good. It will continue to go on, you know.
That's wonderful. So what are your principal shows now? And I understand basically you've just sort of gotten back into this full time for the last, how many years?
Well, for the last 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah, about the last 3 years I've gotten back into.
Were you still doing Indian market during this period, or did you?
No, I haven't done Indian market since late 80s. I just
As a student, you mean? Did you do it as a student?
No, I didn't do it as a student. I did it when I had moved back here and I was teaching at IAIA in the 80s. I did it for about 5 or 6 years or so. Can't even remember how many years I did it, but it wasn't a really good venue for me, because, you know, in Santa Fe every year it's outdoors. In the summer they have this rain right in the middle of the day, and we had these open booths, and it would rain on all my material and buckskins and stuff, and I'd be trying to rush under the portal to keep everything dry, and so I was just like, I just show out of galleries and museums and stuff, and not do Indian market. So after I stopped doing Indian market, then I was a judge for a few years for that, you know, for the clothing and stuff like that, and then I just stopped doing it because I really didn't need it. It was a lot of extra work that I didn't need. So, but I did the IFAM show this last year. This year, excuse me, what am I saying? In August, I did IFAM, which is during Indian market, because my daughters wanted to do it. So we all got a booth together, Sarah, Alex, and I, and we had a blast. It was fun, and of course it did rain in one day. I was like, well, see, the girls, this is the reason why I don't do this, you know. It was like, but I still enjoyed it. It was fun, and I got to see all my old friends again. You know, it's like everybody at the school. It's like a family reunion, and I got to trade a lot of art with people that I wanted some of their art. You know, that's what one of my favorite things is to trade with other artists. You know, I love doing that. That was good.
How fun. And one of your daughters is a painter, and the other one
as a painter, sculptor, jeweler,
right?
Yeah, photographer, excellent photographer. That's my oldest daughter, Sarah, and she's currently going to school at the Institute of American Arts. But my daughter, Alex, has her bachelor's degree from Kansas City Art Institute, and she's primarily an oil painter and excellent sketch artist, but she also is a great writer. Her writing is unbelievable. She's off the charts, her intellect is. She is when she had her SAT test out of high school, she was in the 98th percentile. So Harvard and Yale and all these people were wanting her to go to school, and I was like, go Alex, go be a politician, please. And she was like, no, she wanted to be an artist. And I was like, well, I should be happy, but, you know, with your intellect, please go on. But anyway, she's doing really, really well, and she's an excellent writer, and she took piano lessons as well, and she is an excellent pianist. And she's really, really good. She writes her own songs. She plays classical piano, and so her father, their father, Sarah and Alex's father, he's passed away now, but he was an artist as well, and played guitar and mandolin, and was a really good artist. He worked with a lot of ad agencies and did a lot of the different, like, I don't know if you're familiar with Santa Fe Pale Ale. He did the design for their bottling company, Grayhorse champagne, and that soda pop from Santa Fe, Blue Sky soda and everything. He did all of that. He was just a really good artist as well, and musician. And unfortunately, he passed away though in '96. And but they got a lot of their talent, of course, from their father. You know, Peter Stopp is his name.
So, who are some of the galleries that handle your work then?
Right now, well, the Peabody Museum, and but I am in the permanent collection at the Philbrook Museum and it's the American Indian Arts Museum, which is now it's called the Museum of Contemporary Indian Arts, and Smithsonian, and LA County Museum, and I can't remember where else. I think Denver Art Museum. Trying to think.
And you never did apply for a research grant?
Tribal Museum.
Right.
No, I can't forget them. Sorry. Sorry.
And I think you did a show there. We'll talk about in a bit too. But you never applied for a research grant at the NMAI or anything?
Actually, I was artist in residence there in the '90s.
Oh, well, tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, it was great. I studied everything they had. Osage, you know, it was at that George Gustav Hay collection up there in New York City. And I just told them I want to see everything you have that's Osage, and so of course they showed it to me and everything. And but I mainly was focusing on Osage tattoos, you know, and the implements that are used for that. And there's really not that much written about it, and we don't do traditional tattoos anymore as a tribe because it was part of our old religion, and we've given that up. We collectively decided at the turn of the century not to have our traditional religion anymore, and so we don't have that anymore. But I did a lot of research on it and the symbolism and everything, just to try to keep that, at least the symbols alive for future generations, you know, historically, so it will be remembered, you know. So that's what I studied while I was there, and then I went back for, they asked me back to be one of the people that picks the next group of people that get to be artists in residence. So I got to go back and do that, which was fun. And that was in the museum in Washington, D.C. then. And I got to see all the cool new museum and everything, which is fabulous, of course, you know, beautiful, amazing. And
well, talk to us a little bit about the Peabody show in Boston, and this was very recent. You just came back.
Yeah, in fact, it just opened this weekend. And I went up there November 2nd through the 5th and put up my pieces on, I have 4 pieces in there on the mannequins, and it's Mylar designs that I've done before in the past and still constantly do, because I love them. And they're dresses that are full-length dresses, strapless dresses that are made out of Mylar, and then I decorate them with fur, fox fur, and then paint the body with traditional Osage tattoo designs, the arms just from here, and do really nice elaborate headpieces that involve using silver, sterling silver, eagle feathers, crystal, quartz crystals, freshwater pearls, moonstones, silver beads, and so I incorporate those into different headpieces because, you know, there's so much going on from here down. It's so bright and elaborate that if you didn't have a lot going on up here, it'd be out of balance. So I make these big elaborate pieces, and one of the newer things that I've done is I got a hold of some space shuttle glass, which is really interesting, and it literally makes its own light. It picks up light from anywhere, because they need that, you know, they need that light to for reflection, you know, on the space shuttle. So anyway, and when it picks up the light, it's always different each time you turn it. It's almost like a rainbow effect, you know. So I used some space shuttle glass beads and big pieces of it to make a headpiece that I made for the Peabody Museum. I made a few other headpieces, and those worked out really well. And those are amazing because every time you photograph them, every time you walk, they change colors, because that's just the properties of the glass, you know.
How did you find it? Were you just researching online?
Well, I just ran into this lady who I buy a lot of beads from, and she was buying it and then melting it down and making smaller beads. And I was like, "Can I just buy your stock off you, your big pieces?" And she was like, "Sure, if that's what you want." And I was like, "Yeah, because I have an idea for this. I need bigger pieces of it, slabs of it." And so I bought everything she had, and I bought the beads she made as well, and put it all together. It's amazing stuff. I encourage all the beaders out there to check it out. Space Shuttle glass. It's like the new thing, I would say, It's the hip new thing in art supplies as far as I'm concerned.
What's been one of the most important honors or awards you feel like you've gotten for your either clothing or contemporary fashion?
First place in most creative design any category at Indian Market.
And you won that several years in a row, didn't you?
Yeah, it was in the 80s, though.
Uh-huh.
And I stopped doing that, and then I can't even remember.
How did it feel when you won that award?
Good, I guess, but I wish I'd gotten Best of Show, But I think being asked to do a Pendleton blanket design for American Indian College Fund to raise money for them was one of the biggest honors I've ever had in my life. I really enjoyed doing that. I love doing charity work, and I just actually finished a blanket design for a foundation for the Osage Nation. It's called the Osage Nation Foundation, and it'll be out, I think, in March. It's another Pendleton blanket design, limited edition, and I like it just as well as the one I did for American Indian College Fund. I'm very honored to be able to do that because, growing up with being Native American and growing up around Pendletons, they're like, we give them away and use them for everything, as clothing, on your bed, drape them over your windows, give them away, put them on your horse, it's like such a honor to get and to give and receive Pendletons that that was one of the goals in my life when I was younger, was to do a Pendleton blanket design, and now I'm lucky enough to have done two. So that's a big honor.
That's really wonderful. What's been the hardest thing that you've ever made?
Hard is, what do you mean hard? Time consuming? What do you mean? I don't understand what you mean.
You can choose, or maybe in terms of materials that you were working with, or time, something that was just the most challenging thing you ever tried to?
Well, finger weaving is very challenging, but I did some pieces once on a loom, a floor loom, where I threaded the warp. I used sewing thread, cotton sewing thread, and so it was 120 threads per inch, and I threaded up on the warp itself size 12 cut glass beads. So as I was weaving, and I painted the warp, so as I was weaving it, I pushed the beads up into the design that was painted on, in with the weft as it was going. So that was one of the nicest pieces I've ever done, and I only did a couple of those, and I don't have a floor loom now. I'm hoping to buy myself another one, but I think that was one of the most revolutionary and pieces that I'm really proud of, and I haven't seen anybody else do that ever in fiber arts. So, because it is hard to do, because you have to sit there and put those little tiny beads like this on that warp after you've wound the warp, and it was about 8 inches wide, 120 threads per inch, and then, just threading it up on the loom itself is a task, and then weaving it was actually not so hard. It was fun, but setting up the loom was the hard part. And that won first place at Indian Market, and I don't think they even knew what they were looking at, but these people bought it off of me. I probably should have never sold it, but when you got to pay the bills somehow,
That's right. What's your favorite thing to work on?
There's so many things I like to do. I like to sew screen print, but I also like to make paintings that are like, I call them assemblages, but they're like that piece behind you. They're like multi-layers. I build up layers of objects, like multiples of objects, and paint, and on a big canvas. Some of them have been really big, like 5 by 9 and stuff like that. And I used to put like 6-inch styrofoam inside of a frame and paint it, and then put like glass and nails and paint and porcupine quills and feathers and beads and ribbons and all kinds of things, you know, but they would be in multiples and multiple repeating patterns on top of each other, and I really enjoyed doing those. And haven't done any of those in a long time, but I did those for a while and had a couple of shows with those, and I think I really enjoy doing that. And those are, but that's like almost immediate gratification, like silkscreen printing, where it helps me not go crazy, because sometimes beadwork and ribbon work and stuff is so time consuming that I get stressed out, so I have to do something that's like for immediate gratification, you know, so that I won't go crazy. You know, and my eyes have gotten bad over time, you know, now I'm wearing glasses, and every time I go to get cheaters, the prescription gets stronger and stronger, you know, so, you know, I guess it's easier on my eyes, you know, to do things like that instead of just that tiny little beadwork. But even though I enjoy beadwork and it's beautiful, I love the end result, it's hard on my eyes.
When did you open your store here then? Was it the same time 3 years ago, or?
Yeah, it had been a bar. This building here had been a bar since the 1940s, and then my dad bought it in '96, and it was just used as a storage space until 2006, and then we opened it up as a bar again, but we couldn't make any money here in Fairfax. It's such a small town, so we closed it down, and then I just cleared it out and then used it. I've been using it as a studio because it's such a nice big long space, and you know, the floors are concrete, so if we get the floors dirty, it doesn't matter if you drop paint or whatever, you know, you can, you know, and it's a lot of extra room to spread out and work in. I love it. It's really functional, you know. We've got a porch on the back, and it's right by the bank, you know, and the post office, so I mean, you know, location is everything.
It's a great space.
Thank you.
So what project do you have coming up that you're really excited about?
Well, this show at the Peabody is going to go to the Portland Art Museum in Portland, Oregon.
Will you go to that?
Yeah, and set it up there. And then it'll come to the Philbrook. So yay! You know, everybody, my family and my friends can go see it at the Philbrook.
That's wonderful.
And then it'll go from there to Washington, D.C. But one of my goals in life is that I haven't come to fruition is I'd like to have some pieces or a piece in the Museum of Modern Art in New York City, and I'd also like to, with my Mylar designs that I've done, you know, and my models, I would like to hold a performance piece at the White House whenever the government decides to let the public know that they have been in contact with extraterrestrials. And I would like to, you know, be like a welcoming committee with my girls and my models and Mylar pieces as like, you know, a performance to say, hey, you know, we know that you've been here and thank you for being here and we're welcoming you, you know. Sort of like I hope it doesn't turn out bad like the Aztec children did, you know, with, you know, Montezuma's kids, you know, when Cortez came and all those little kids and greeted him with flowers and things, you know.
So let's talk about your process and techniques a little bit more. In terms of your painting, your silkscreen painting, has your palette changed a lot? You've been doing this sort of since the beginning too, right?
Oh no, it's changed.
Okay.
It's
In what
changed
ways?
a lot. The palette, as far as colors go, well, just mixing colors, and I think I've gravitated to blending colors more instead of just straight colors. Then again, sometimes I still do that, but when I'm printing, I'll put 3 or 4 colors on there, not mixed, but then I'll mix them as I pull the squeegee across the screen, which I enjoy doing that, and so that's a way that I've changed. I use a lot of metallics and I think I might have done that in the past too, but maybe more so now in the future. But I've always used the water-based inks. I don't like to use oil-based inks, and I always use natural materials. Cotton, linen, and silk are the main materials that I use to print on. And I've always done that, so that hasn't changed. And but as far as, and I do a lot of hand painting and hand dyeing of the material too, you know. And that process, that's a different process, I think, that I've started. I put the material out on the back porch, either silk or linen or whatever I'm working at, and then I'll hose it down. And then I sprinkle powdered dyes on there, colored dyes, and let them bleed into the material. And then after they've dried, then I hose it all off so that I rinse it all clean. And that's what I've been doing lately. And I got that idea from my friend Margaret Roach-Wheeler. She was doing that. She showed me some of that she'd done, and I was like so impressed that I was like, I'm going to do that instead of like doing the dip dye technique where you get a vat of dye and then dye and, you know, do variations of tie dye. So I'm really into that right now, and it's working out really well. I really like that effect.
It's a lot more subtle in a way,
organic.
Isn't it? Yeah,
I really like it.
Yeah.
It's real elegant. I feel.
Great.
I think it's nice to wear that as opposed to like the other dip dye type of things. It's kind of like flowing thing. It's more forgiving on the body. You know, it's like your eye moves more. You know, when you make clothing out of it.
Right. In terms of supplies, do you shop mostly online, or do you go to Tulsa or Stillwater or
a little bit of both?
City?
For silk screen printing and that and the dyes and stuff, it's all online because they're not available there. But I do a lot of like wherever I'm at, like Kansas City or wherever I'm at. If I find a nice fabric shop or beads store or whatever, I'll go to it and I'll buy it, you know, buy whatever's available. But, you know, there used to be Osage Nation used to have a gift shop that I used to buy a bunch of ribbon from there, you know, to do ribbon work and stuff. But now I mainly buy stuff online like that, and I order all my broadcloth online and buckskins online too. And I order a lot of skins and stuff from Montana, and I went up there and bought some. And Canada has really good furs that I get. I ordered them out of Canada. They're cheaper and they're better quality for the furs.
Do you keep a sketchbook of designs when you?
Oh yeah, little ones, big ones. I take photographs of things to remember them. You know, if I don't have something to draw it on, you know.
Do you also keep notes on processes?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I just scribble little notes or whatever, you know. And I don't know, a lot of my art's pretty organic. It's like the way I cook. Sometimes I don't measure things out exactly. Some cooks, you know how they measure things out. I just get a pot, put it all together. You know what I mean? That's kind of the way I do my art too. You know, it's not like a precise science. A lot of artists are very precise, and I really respect that. You know, I got a lot of flack in college for that, for not having my finished work look exactly like the drawing that I handed in, and then when I'd have the critique would come along, and then the piece of work was totally different from the original drawing. One of my teachers really appreciated that, but the other one didn't. So I ended up getting a C out of my major on my senior year because that's the way I work. But it didn't bother me. I was okay as long as I graduated. You know, I was just like, just get out of here and start doing it for real. You know.
Is a certain percentage of your work commission work?
Yes. Yes.
How big a part is that?
Probably like half of my work. Yeah, people ask me to do stuff all the time. I just finished making some clothes for this woman who got married, and then I'm getting ready to do a vest right now. I've got a years in advance people order stuff because they know my schedule is pretty busy. So.
And a lot of it's going to people here.
Yeah, and or sometimes I get commission works from museums, you know, for their permanent collection, or just individuals, you know, collectors, people who just want dance clothes, or sometimes people just want a piece of my art. You know, so.
Is that piece behind us, that's yours?
That's Alex's, my youngest daughter Alex.
Okay.
That's a print that she did when she was going to school at the Kansas City Art Institute. I love it. That's why I put it up there.
Yeah, it's really nice, and I was just thinking your fabric really lends itself to that too. You actually could do triptych paintings. Have you done any? Have you done any of that?
No, I guess I could put them on. I usually just leave them loose, but I guess I could put them on frames. Well, I made a contemporary blanket for the Osage casino offices out of it was one of the felts from one of their blackjack tables, and I used it and I beaded it and put ribbon work and stuff on it, and then they bought it to hang up in their offices, and so we had it mounted on a frame and then framed. It was huge. It weighed like 300 pounds because it was huge, but you know, it was a blanket. But it so that has been stretched on you know, framed like a canvas, you know, even though it was made as a blanket.
Right.
To begin with, a contemporary design, you know. I've made a few of those. I've made a couple of those blackjack table felt blankets before. One was in this show called Art Without Reservation, and it was at the what was it, American Crafts Museum in New York City. And traveled around.
I remember.
Remember that? And I had that was in that show. So I did those a few years back, and then I did a few pieces where I made blankets with F-14 fighter jets on them, appliqued and beaded on there, and those are really cool. And then I made a traditional man's wearing blanket one time with tomahawks and I think it was machine guns, and, you know, appliqued and beaded on there with a buffalo head and hatchets and guns. And sometimes I use contemporary elements in the traditional way, you know, to form just because we're evolving just like everybody else. Just because we're Native American doesn't mean that we don't evolve. I love that new thing that's going on with the powwow scene with the day-glow colors. I love that. That's like a trend, you know, fashion trend, you know, right now that's going on, you know. I don't know if any collectors are collecting that, but if they were smart, they would, because, you know, it'll change. It'll be hip for a few more years, and then something else come along, you know. You know, that's the way we are, you know, as people.
I forgot to ask you about the Osage Museum show. You did a little fashion show at the Tribal Museum, and that must have, what was that like?
It was great. People loved it. They were really moved. There was people that were even crying. They thought it was so beautiful. I was like amazed. It made me want to cry. It was that Cokia Mound shoot that I did, and then they asked me to do the show there at the museum with the Mylar and then the buckskin designs that I did with people that were, you know, like in traditional clothing, pre-European contact clothing that I made. And it was all buckskin and otter hides and shells and natural paints and things like that, you know. And I really loved working on those pieces. It was a challenge, but also it was like a relief not to have to use glass beads or anything like that. Just I really enjoyed the natural elements those clothes were made out of. And I think the kids really enjoyed wearing them too because they're so comfortable, you know. And then of course making the for that show I had a roach made silver, and you know how Indian roaches, men's roaches are usually a porcupine quill and eagle feathers. Well, I adapted. I made a contemporary one out of silver, and with big rock crystals going back in it, and it's set on the head like that. It was like a roach, you know. So, and the museum bought that from me for their permanent collection because they have a collection of roaches. So now they have that contemporary one in the Osage Museum.
That's very cool. So take us through your process from the time you get an idea for a project.
Well, usually I think about it. It usually comes to me like at night or in a dream, or I'm laying in bed thinking about things, you know. And sometimes I'll sketch it down right quick or write it down, or I'll just get up the next day and just come in the studio and or go straight to, if I need to buy materials, go and buy them and then just start working on it. You know, just immediately.
No preparatory sketches necessarily?
Sometimes, but usually not. I might have to sketch out the ribbon work or whatever, or I'll draw right onto the wool if I'm going to bead it or whatever, you know. Or sometimes I'll just do a couple of thumbnail sketches or do a big sketch if I'm going to do a new silkscreen print, you know, draw it out and then just copy it onto the silkscreen from what I've drawn on a piece of sketch paper. And then, like for my Pearson blanket designs, though, I work in a different medium. I use colored paper, like solid colored paper, and I cut the whole thing out, and do it like 1/4 size of the blanket, exactly to scale, but use colored paper and cut the whole design out. It's easier for me to do that and then painting it. I enjoy doing that. Yeah, I've done a lot of, which haven't been made into blankets, but I have a lot of those that I've done out of cut paper, and I just framed them and put them on the wall.
How about signing your pieces? Great.
The paintings I usually just sign. I put Wendy on there, but
just Wendy?
Yeah, Wendy. Sometimes Wendy Ponca, and then I put a heart and a star. But and dated, of course, if it's a two-dimensional piece like that. But I have some tags that say Ponca Design, like a little logo thing. I have some like labels that you put in clothing that I sometimes remember to put in my fabrics, and I do that, you know, sometimes. So, but a lot of times I forget. So,
right.
But I try to remember to do that.
Well, looking back on your career so far, what's been one of the high points?
Oh gosh, there's so many. Well, I was in a show with these weavers out in Santa Fe that went to Mozambique, Africa. I thought that was kind of cool.
What a neat. Did you go?
I didn't go, but my piece went and got sold over there. So somebody over there is wearing it. It was a buckskin and hand woven shirt, really cool thing that I made with otter hide. And so I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
You know. And I went when I was 21 years old. I went and studied weaving in Greece on the island of Evia for the summer and studied architecture in Athens and stuff. So I really enjoyed that. I loved that. I was like, I didn't want to move back. I wanted to stay there and live there. It's beautiful there. And I think I went on a trip in 1978 with my dad and the American Associations of Museums, and we went to Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, and Chile, and we went to all these beautiful archaeological sites like Machu Picchu and Lake Titicaca and Tiwanaku, and we flew across the Nazca Plains in a 2-engine plane and got to see all this beautiful art, you know, Incan art and pre-Incan art and architecture. And so that was a great learning experience for me. And my parents and I, when I was younger too, we lived in Texas, we traveled a lot in Mexico. And I love watching people there make art. They make art out of anything, you know. You can make something out of nothing, and I was always impressed with that. And lots of it, multiples. So that, I think, has really influenced me a lot, is making multiples of things, you know. Lots of them. I appreciate that. I like that. There's something about that. Just that rhythm, you know. Lots of things. What other highlights? Having my kids, all 4 of my kids, I had them in Santa Fe Indian Hospital there on Cerritos Road. They're all healthy and happy and beautiful children. What else?
How about maybe a low point then?
A low point. Low point would be, I don't know, something really bad. Well, death in your family, there can't be any lower point than that, you know. And a friend of mine committed suicide. That's really low, you know, a good friend of mine. And that's probably the lowest point in my life, you know. Death in the family, that is the lowest, so I would say that. But I've never really, if I've ever been without work or poor, I don't think that's low. That, to me, that's not low. That's just work harder, get your act together, you know. Yeah, and I'm not really into like buying fast cars or anything like that. You know what I mean? I'm just happy with having my studio and work, being able to work, you know, it's basically all I need. So I don't feel like I'm in need of anything, you know, or lacking anything, or, so there's no low there, you know. I think if anything was low, it'd be if my children were hurt or not well or something like that. Anybody in my family, that's to me the low point in life, you know. But they're pretty healthy so far, you know. Knock on wood, everybody's good. So,
is there anything we forgot to talk about or you'd like to add before we look at a couple of examples of your work?
I just, right now I'm drawing a blank, you know, different shows I've been in and published. I've been publishing that I know of about 14 different books on just native art and stuff like that. And I think that's really good because in the future, then my grandkids and kids that don't know me or don't even know what I do, then they can look it up and they can say, wow, that was my grandma. She did that, you know. Because it just until recently, my kids didn't even know I did this. They just have been around it so much, they just took it for granted, you know. So now they can look back and say, well, she was a pro at that. She was a professional. She'd made a living at it, you know. She wasn't just messing around making our clothes to dance in, you know. They take that for granted. Right. You know what I mean? They really do. So I think that'll be a good thing. You know, and then maybe it'll inspire some kids in the future to do art, you know, traditional art, you know, or whatever kind of art they want to do, you know. If they look back and see that, and they can say, okay, well, I can do that and get on it, you know.
Well, great. Well, we're going to take a look at some of your work.
Okay.
All right. So would you like to tell us about your creation here?
Yes. Well, this is a piece that I did to show what we might have worn pre-European contact. And it's all made out of hand-tanned buckskin and otter hide, and then shells and rocks, shells and
hands are amazing.
Seeds and bone, and then copper, which we actually had, which I saw in the museum there at the Cahokia Mounds, where they used copper and they made jewelry and they decorated and things with copper. So I had the copper made, cut out, and then I put it onto the buckskin. And then I made the dress, and it's all made out of buckskin, and then these really nice miniature little shells here.
Yeah.
Abalone shells, and then I used a mixture of charcoal and glue to make the paint here. And this is the otter hide, and then the dress goes around like this in the back. Oh, it's got a tag on there. But this is the way the otter hide just comes on here like this as a separate piece. And it just goes like that.
It's beautiful.
And then I made it where it laces up so it can fit different sizes. You can lace it tighter or
right.
loose, and it feels really good on when you wear this buckskin. It's so nice and warm. But you know, the earliest depictions and drawings and paintings of contact with Osage, as you know, Osage women wore a skirt with no top, a buckskin skirt, and then they had robes and everything, you know, and tattoos. And so I didn't make it just as a skirt for modesty for my model. I went ahead and made it a strapless dress, and kind of on to, you know, of course it's my design, but I was thinking of as what we would have worn, you know, before we had trade goods and stuff like that. And using the symbolism that there's a lot of this symbolism like this at the Cahokia Mounds, and these hands, they had this exact bone hands in the cases there, and they found in the burials. And these were worn by men, but I just put this on there because it's you know, this was a traditional thing that all Osages wore. This is the shell, it's a freshwater shell, and it's the color of sunrise. And it's every morning Osages would pray to God at dawn, and that's what that color is, that representing that color. So anyway, I really like this piece. I thought it was really elegant and beautiful.
It is. So tell us about this dress.
Well, this is one of my Mylar designs that I've done in fox fur and then some crystal and freshwater pearls and bones and stuff. This is like one of the prototypes, like for the show that I'm in with the Peabody. This is like what I did also in that photo shoot at Cahokia Mounds of my star people.
Right.
You know, as if they came down from the stars, and then so I dressed them in this Mylar, and it has a large train. Usually the train is going back farther than the ones in the photo shoot, but you can make the train as long as you want and goes back, and it's just Mylar, which they use in the space shuttles, you know. Great. And anyway, that's I've been doing these for years, and then body paint on the models, you know, because it looks really well, real dramatic, and then with headpieces. I don't have any headpieces here, but
right.
In the show at the Peabody, there's those headpieces that go with it. But there's 4 of these, and I've had these designs at fashion shows all over, like we did for Art Museum.
It's amazingly durable, isn't it?
Yeah,
because of this Mylar.
Right, and I just to put it on, I just staple it in the back and use duct tape. Thank goodness we have that really cool silver duct tape, you know, and it just I make it kind of like a corset in the back, and so it brings it all in really nice and tight on the models. And of course, you know, when they're doing a fashion show or something, I have like slips underneath because this is really hot. You know, people wrap themselves in this to lose weight, you know, so I put a little slip on underneath for them so they don't have to be so uncomfortable, but it works really well. In our tribe, we have clans, but we also have divisions. And there's like the earth people and then the sky people. But the earth people are divided into 2 groups. The water people and the terra firma, the earth people, you know, earth people. So I'm from that division of the water people, of the earth people. So I get a lot of inspiration from water sources and stuff. You know, and the word Wahzhazhe actually means water people. So this is kind of, you know, like my inspiration for this, you know. And I love swimming in the lakes and back here in Oklahoma, and so this is a piece, you know, that's inspired by that.
I love the movement on it, and there's even a little dragonfly in there.
And actually those frog symbols are actually women.
They look female.
Yeah. And in South America, frogs are fertility symbols. South American Indian art. So this piece here, you know, it has some water symbols in it too, but it also has the hand symbol in there. And the hand symbol actually, the symbol itself is called the hoiga in Osage. And what a hoiga means, what it translates to in English, is the snare that catches the breath of life. So when you see that hand symbol, it's a statement that, you know, we're spirits, but we're caught in this physical being. You know, that's what that represents. So that's kind of my design of the hands, and then I like the fish. And it's kind of more water symbols too.
It's really neat.
Thanks.
Thank you for sharing that.
It's all silkscreen printed, hand dyed. This one's on linen.
Okay. Yeah.
And then painted and dyed.
How about this piece, Wendy?
This is in silk. It's hand dyed and silkscreen printed, and the symbol that I printed on there is the Mayan symbol for heaven that they carve. Wow. It's a glyph that they carve on their temples, and I just thought it was really, really elegant.
Oh yeah,
and it works really well with the
silver. Oh, those are such beautiful, delicate colors.
Yeah, I really like it. I think it works really well.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.